We are freshly back from Pax East 2024, and we were lucky enough to be able to preview one of the most anticipated games that is set to release sometime soon. That is Dune Awakening. It is a survival MMO, and at PAX East and also GDC, there was a 30-minute presentation that we were able to watch, that we were able to ask questions about. And we're going to break down some of the details that we were able to see from the presentation and also some of the questions that we were able to ask and get answered. But before that, I do want to introduce the communications director of level1gaming.com, Baron67. How's it going today, boss man?
You know what? It's pretty good, man. Being back from PAX, and I feel like we had a good showing, and I feel like we caught a lot of good content. So, you guys, if you want to see our travels at PAX East, all the content's going to be up about time you watch this on YouTube, here, TikTok, our website, lv1gaming.com. So, yeah, you guys make sure to tune in there. But let's jump into Dune Awakening, bro.
Yeah, let's jump right into it because there was a lot of awesome things that came out of this presentation. One thing I do want to note that the video that we saw was in beta, so there was some moments where
Yes.
things looked a little bit janky, things that
Yeah.
kind of could have been cleaned up, but it was actually to be expected, and that expectation was set very early on in the presentation, like, hey, this is in beta and these particular things will be getting cleaned up throughout its development cycle, right? So I do want to make that a note. So one of the very first things that we got to see was the character creation. It looks as if the character
Yes.
creation is going to be extremely in depth. Right now, I have on screen one of the characters that was shown. I do want to point out to my fellow Afro Americans, yes, the Killmonger hairstyle is in the game. If you look on the middle row, right in the middle, there it is, the Killmonger. But there seems to be
The
more hairstyles.
Yeah, it's definitely there. But you know what? The depth of the character creation was it was a pleasant surprise. It's
Mm-hmm.
something you often see in a lot of MMOs where you're able to kind of over exaggerate your character's features, go into detail everything from cheekbones to lips to forehead, eyebrow, eye separation, and then they showed us that there's going to be more detail because from of course we don't have that stuff right here, but what they showed us it was a little more nodule. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that's the word I'm looking for, and there was only so many preset options. But the presenter, and forgive me for forgetting her name, she did an amazing job.
She was amazing.
Um, yeah, we'll make sure to put it in the description somewhere. But she actually expressed that there's going to be a wider range of options, and it's not going to be so set. So it's going to be more fluid, like you see in a lot of current MMOs. But skin tone looked amazing. They showed us the description of a black character, which looked great. The
Yeah, she's up on
hair
screen right now.
looked
She looks
great.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, she looked amazing. And then it was just how much for this to be such an early beta, like fame, like you mentioned, it looked good.
Mm-hmm.
Way better than I thought it would look. And but yeah, that's my thought on the looks. And they did mention that there's going to be more hair designs,
Yep.
and more options.
And from what there were a lot of sliders. I mean, there were a lot of sliders.
Yeah.
You can really get in here and tweak your character. I think we're gonna see people have fun with this, a la Dragon's Dogma 2. How
Yes.
we were seeing Dune characters from the movie in Dragon's
Yes.
Dogma 2. We're gonna get that. You're gonna get that level of detail from what we can see in Dune Awakening. So I think it's going to be very important for people to be able to have their characters stand out, to be maybe do something special in the game. And there's a lot of other cool things that we're going to dive into. But I think that was very important off the rip for us to see the character selection. But yes, the Killmonger is in there. I don't think
Yes.
that's going away anytime soon. Next up, we was able to see some things with the background. And if Baron, you correct me if I'm wrong, because like I said, this 30-minute presentation, we try to take notes as quickly
Yes.
as possible.
Yeah.
Also, at lv1gaming.com, there's an article that is up. If you're watching this, that article is up. I kind of go into a little bit more detail as I was able to write to and with my notes. But you're able to pick your background, which has an effect on how NPCs will react to you. But you want to talk more into that?
Yeah, so you can be a disciple. You could join up with the Bene Gesserit. You can join up with so far they said it was three different houses, right? They mentioned
Yes.
Harkonnens, Atreides, and of course they talked about the timeline. This is like a pseudo parallel timeline, and I know we'll get more into that later, but
Yeah.
there are current houses that are in the book that exist that you're going to be able to choose from, and all of these things like Faye mentioned are going to affect how the world responds to you, and including abilities and bonuses and different plus advantages and disadvantages in terms of building your character. So that's actually something that's pretty cool, because oftentimes with MMOs, when the ones that I've played, a lot of times you kind of just dumped in a world and you kind of build it up as you see fit, and you
Hmm.
kind of gain your skills on the go. But with this, it gives you sort of a path you're going to be walking. So I think this is going to be dope.
I think one of the
What?
interesting things about the background, it kind of gets to one like me. I've never watched the Dune, any of the Dune movies. I've never read any of the books, but this game looks very interesting to me. So being able to see the background choices and how that will affect you and why that would affect you is going to be very important for people new to the Dune franchise, like myself. Right? I've never, again, no books, no movie. I'm going to watch the movies now. I
Yeah.
think I think I have to watch the movies now. But this will begin. This will give you some backstory into why things are the way they are, and I think even more so to that, and I'm going to switch the screenshots here. Not only will you have to pick a background, you pick a mentor, and that
Yes.
mentor really dictates your starting abilities and where you are on the
Yes.
tree. Now, being an MMO, I'm sure there's going to be a way to be eventually get these particular traits. We didn't see the full skill tree, but I'm quite sure it's going to be pretty massive. So it's going to be very important that you are comfortable with what you choose as a background and who you choose as a mentor, because that can really drastically change how you go about that. But do you have any thoughts about that? About choosing a mentor that we're all not going to start with the same ability, the same traits. There's three different paths you
Yes.
can go down.
What I like about this is this adds more to a MMORPG. Now, I
Mm-hmm.
know I know that sounds a little cliche, but off this isn't so much so Arc, like, or at least old Arc 1. This is feeling more like ESO. Not in terms of gameplay, but in terms of background setup, in terms of abilities, factions, and how these things, and picking your sides early on and getting your buffs and whatnot early on with your abilities and which route you want to go. Like, do you want to be a sword master? Do you want to be a do you want to become have your mentor be a Bene Gesserit and have more mental abilities and the voice? And do
Mm-hmm.
you want, like, and all these things were discussed, and it was pretty cool that they went through like a whole list of different basically classes that are going to be available to you. Am I jumping ahead?
No,
Make
no,
sure
no.
I'm
You're good.
not.
You're good.
No, okay. I'm good for that.
Yeah.
But seeing that, it felt a lot better, because when I first seen the preview trailer that everybody got access to, or
Yeah.
the trailer reveal, my worry was it was going to be more so, here you go, you're on Arrakis, you're on the planet Dune, which that's the original name of Arrakis. We're not here to talk lore. You're on Arrakis, and now go and be Arrakis resident, however you see fit. I thought it was just gonna dump us into the world and say go live.
Mm-hmm.
And I not that that would have been necessarily a bad thing, but I wanted something different. Like, what make me want to play this game versus other MMOs that are already out. You got your Once Humans, you got that are around the corner,
Mm-hmm.
you got your
Mm-hmm.
Power Worlds, you have your established ones such as ESOs, your WoW. Like, you have so many other MMOs. So what's gonna make me want to come and play this outside of it being set in the Dune universe? And by them having these classes, even story,
Yeah.
like, I mean, cinematics. We got a chance to look at cinematics very early on within the presentation, and it set the precedence for what type of game we're going to be experiencing. And I really, really, really look forward to that because I'm one of those people where I kind of need a path.
Yeah.
Like it's not the most necessary thing, but it makes it so that I'm not. Which once again, they from the way it was described, you can just go off and do things.
You could just
You know,
you can just do things. You
yeah,
can just do the story if you wanted to.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like more is better. And
Yeah.
options is always a good thing, and that's something they definitely showcased was a lot of options. So this character, the skill tree, they even mentioned the ability to be able to respec. I know there was some, there was no finite like for sure. Yes, this is gonna happen, but it was just something that was
Yes.
discussed.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I'm looking forward to be able to. I'm probably gonna go Swordmaster. Just was there any class that actually stood out to you just off hearing it and kind of seeing it for
I
a
think
bit?
because I don't have that background, it's all going to be brand new to me. So nothing really stood out
Ah,
to me.
gotcha.
But I do want to touch on one thing that you had said, and I want to remind people. I got a new screenshot on the screen. That's we kind of want to talk about some things here. And this is a survival MMO, not just it's not
Yes.
your dad's MMO, right? It's not WoW. Like there are things
Yeah.
that you need to be worrisome of. Like you're going to start the game, you're going to have less than nothing. You're going to have basic weapons. You're going to have eventually that'll go from spring loaded guns to gas loaded. I mean, eventually you're gonna
Yeah.
get better and better weapons, but it's gonna take time, right? And some of the things that you can see on screen, you guys can see right now. You're gonna see two players on a vehicle. They're in the sun, right? This isn't necessarily a good thing because you don't want to be in the sun because you can get sunstroke, right? So you got to manage being in the sun.
Yes.
You want to be in the shade. And if you are a person that has read the Dune books, read the Dune movies, what else is in the sand? The sandworm
Worms.
that
Shall
that we
Louis.
found out you
Yeah.
cannot outrun. If you're in
Yes.
the middle of the
Well,
desert,
you have
you
an
got to get to land.
opportunity. Yeah, you got to get to rock formation. So yes, if you're just in a straight out getaway chase, no matter what vehicle you're in, it is made clear that if you don't get to rock formation safety, you will be eaten
Yep.
by a sandworm. And you can fight the sandworm, but it's been made clear that you cannot kill the sandworm. Like you are not killing sandworms. You're not going out and hunting them. They are hunting you.
And they know where you are on the screenshot on screen. If you look at the bottom right, you will see a number. That's the amount of like sound that, or
Yeah.
vibrations that you're making. And the more you're making, it's almost like a dolphin with echolocation. They know exactly where you are and it is coming. So if you're out and about and you're just rummaging through the sand and you're just making all this noise, it's coming for you. And you better have rock formation close because and I was going to talk about this a bit later, but let's talk about it now. Just like in most MMOs, if you play, Enshrouded, Power, or whatever you're playing, you die, you can go back and pick up your equipment. It'll be a little bit degraded, but you can pick it up. If you're
Yes.
eaten,
By a
if you're
sandworm.
eaten by the sandworm, you lose everything.
Yeah, everything you had on you at that time is
Your
gone.
your armor, your money, your spices, gone.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
play in the sand.
But you know what's beautiful about that, and well, I'll go to that because I feel like I'm about to skip a
Oh
lot.
yeah,
So let
let's
me
do
chill.
it. Let's do it.
Speaking of the environment, and I know we talked about the rock formations. One cool thing that was brought up is that the world of the game world in Dune Awakening is actually more so towards the books and not so
Mm-hmm.
much the movies. Because if you've seen the movies, Dune is desolate spice and sand and rock. That's what Dune is. But in the books, which I haven't read the books, but I'm gonna head and take the people who have the rights to the IP, I'm gonna take their word for it, that Dune is in the books more so is compared to Arizona. You have foil plants, you have a little bit of life, there's random caverns with water, and they show a lot of this in the demo. So everything we're talking about right now, you clearly see
Mm-hmm.
in the demo. And it's pretty cool, and I'm actually glad about that because I was worried that it was gonna be legit like sand, rock outcropping,
Yeah.
sand.
And
Like,
how what described was this was an alternate timeline. So if you're looking for
yes.
a particular thing, it's not going to be that. Yeah.
Yeah. And even with explaining away being able to interact as a male while being around the Bene Gesserit, that, because
Mm-hmm.
for those who are in the know, Bene Gesserit are
Ooh,
women, and
special.
yeah. No, it just go watch the movie. But no, but it's cool that they acknowledged a lot of these things, and my phone is going off. But no, it the world, I'm glad that it's more than just sand and rock.
Yeah.
And they even showed the sandworms. They showed you being eaten. They showed the sandworm how it'll pop out of the ground as like a warning off in the distance. And that was actually something that was really cool, was the scope. Did you
Mm-hmm.
notice how big the world, like,
Oh, it's huge.
yeah, like that's something I wasn't necessarily ready for, because when I think MMO, I think enclosed small areas that you kind of, not small, that's rude. But I don't think grand scale like open world. It reminded me of a single player open world experience. Like,
Ah,
that's
okay.
seeing it reminded me of like Assassin's Creed in terms of how big the world, not like the map, not that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the scale. Like when you look off in the distance, that whole thing of if you want to go there, you can. That's how big everything looked, and it's actually a question nobody really asked.
Yeah.
But visually, the way they presented it, that's how it looked. Like there is a vast distance, and you can explore a lot. And it didn't give me a feeling of hollow and empty,
Mm-hmm.
but it still is Dune, which is kind of hollow.
And
Like, but you
no,
but
I
you get
definitely
what
get
I'm
what you're
saying.
saying.
Yeah.
And one thing I found very interesting when you talk about the world and different places is the deep desert. We talked about a little bit about how you're going to have basic weapons and get better weapons, but in the deep desert, this is where you can get your uniques. And what's unique about this is that the deep desert will be wiped periodically. So there can be a
Yes.
point to where we're playing, we're all on the same server. I can have a weapon that most people do not have because by the time they was able to find this weapon, the deep desert has already been wiped by the developers and those weapons are gone. Right.
Yes.
And I thought that was very interesting because it kind of goes to the point which now that we're here. Another question I wish I could have asked, because one thing about this is that you're able to sell, and this is going to tie into what I was talking about, the unique weapons, right? You're able to sell schematics to the
Yes.
places that you build, right? So I'm not a builder, right? When I play very few MMOs, the survival games I play, like my buildings look like crap. I just want a roof over my head, a bed, and I don't care about buildings, right? We got people
Yeah.
like Johnny on our team who he makes these massive fortresses, right? If you create something that's great, you can take those schematics and you can sell them to other players for in game currency. I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
This isn't real
Yes.
money. It's not ill. It's
In-game
not real
currency.
money. I don't know how people would feel about that. But if you're
Right.
someone who can
Oh.
create and do amazing things, and you're another person like myself who doesn't like to create, but you want something cool, you can use in-game currency and you can buy schematics from other players. And one thing that I kind of want to tie this back to with the unique weapons, I wish we would have asked was, can we do that with
Oh.
weapons? Because if the
Ah.
deep desert wipes and I have this weapon, or maybe I so happen to got lucky and I got two, and people are
Have
like,
the
oh man, where'd you
schematic
get
for
that?
it.
Oh my God, out the deep desert from, a couple of seasons ago. Can I
Yeah.
sell those weapons for in-game currency? I wish I would have asked that question because I think that'd be very
Yes.
unique with the fact that you're going to be wiping the deep desert periodically and there's going to be weapons that people won't be able to get anymore.
And that's something that I was super hype about, was the idea of unique gear, because that's always something that kind of pulls me away from certain games, is not being able to, what separates me from you, and what I want to be able to stand out. I want
Yeah.
to be able to have, maybe I want to have a specific play style. Maybe I want to have nothing but poison damage. Maybe I want to have nothing but different type of status effects, and I want to build a character specifically based off of that. I want to be able to do that. And then the fact that there's crafting, there's base building,
Mm-hmm.
there's the survivability. I don't know, I have this sick love for struggling in video games.
You do.
And
Hurt
yeah,
me.
I
Hurt
do.
me.
Yeah. Like, but oh man, what role am I playing? The victim?
The
No.
victim. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But no, that's a very I really like that. And then the fact that they're diving deep into the making you feel special. And they're
Mm-hmm.
and speaking on the whole multiplayer thing and interacting with other players, somebody asked a great question about the how is it going to be for somebody who's been playing for months and then all of a sudden somebody new wants to join in and play, like is there going to be this big barrier to where they're not going to be able to interact with you, this and
Mm-hmm.
that. And they made it very clear that yes, they'll probably need better gear, but you can give them that gear,
Yep.
but they can play with, they can run with you. Like it's not going to be these hard, from the way it was described, these hard areas to where, oh no, new players aren't going to be welcome here. And that's dope because a lot of people, you hear it all the time, like, oh, I don't want to play that because everybody's so far ahead. It's been so
Yep.
long. I don't want to be the new guy in there. And it just happens. So them making it to where that's not a barrier, I think that's awesome. But no, dude, this is gonna be and then even they answered my question about different color schemes and whatnot. Because once again, being able to create your own custom experience, if you're gonna have crafting, are you gonna let me find different colors? Or are you gonna let me? Because that's one thing I noticed in the demo, that the gear set wasn't all one color.
Yeah.
Like everybody had different variety of things, and bro,
And
this
what? Speaking of other players, I want to talk about PvP here for a second
yes,
because PvP in this is optional. You don't have to do PvP. I think that's going to be great for a lot of players who don't want to be griefed. So the
yes,
PvP is optional. Now, one thing I do find very interesting is that when it comes to your structures, right? We asked the question.
yes,
So hey, can someone come through and just destroy your buildings or whatever, a la what griefing and Rust or pick a
yeah,
game,
oh
right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
One thing they said is that as long as your building has power, it's automatically
Yes,
shielded, right? So we
yes,
didn't dive too deep on how the power system works or how you have to feed your building power, but as long as your building has power, it will be shielded from other players. No matter what attack they bring, they could not bring down your fort. Now, if you run out of power, that's a different thing, right? But PvP is optional, and you get to keep your building upright as long as it has power.
Well, now that we're talking about PvP, let's take a step back and talk about what did you think of the traversal? What did you think about how movement looked in the game?
Well, one thing I thought was very interesting was the system is going to be where you can climb anything, right? If there's a rock there or building there, you got the stamina, you can climb it. I thought that was very neat because a certain game, a lot of games, you can't climb most things unless it's painted in yellow or if it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
designated, you can climb this, right? You learn
yeah.
very early in the game where you want to get across this certain area quick. You don't want to walk around it. I'll just climb it, right? And I thought that was very cool. There are going to be different type of vehicles that you have access to. The when we saw how you were getting the raid missions, which was like or
Hmm.
getting the spices. One thing
Yeah.
that was interesting was you have these land vehicles, and someone who doesn't watch Dune or by Dune, so forgive me for my ignorance. So I don't know the name of these vehicles, right? But the vehicle that goes through and brings up the spices, right?
Hmm.
As a storm is coming down and everyone on the server is racing toward the storm to get those spices, you drop off your land vehicle
The
that picked up your
spice
spice
bloom. The
spice
spice
bloom.
bloom.
What's
Yeah.
interesting is another player in there. What's the bird flying
I
thing
forgot the
called?
name of the flying vehicle. I can't
But you
believe I
can
blanked
go,
on
you
it.
can fly through
Yes.
and pick up the other team's sand
And
bloom
steal their vehicle.
and steal
Yeah.
the vehicle, right? Instead of, they can do all that work getting it, and you can swoop down to get it. I thought that was super cool, right? Again, the I think the traversing this game is going to be awesome. There's a particular belt that you can get that's almost
The
like a
float.
Yeah, so you can't take fog
Yeah.
damage with this belt, right? You jumping off something and it kind
Yes.
of glides you down, and I think that's going to be really awesome when it comes to combat, whether it's versus
Yeah.
NPCs or versus other players and NPCs. Like you're jumping off build instead of you going to your death, you're almost gliding down at a very smooth
Yes.
pace. That's going to be very clutch for a lot of. I mean, I think we're going to see most people using that belt just the fact that
Yes.
hey, it makes me avoid fall damage and it goes down so smooth that I can see you pulling out some amazing attacks with it.
And you know what? For me, dude, seeing that, it once again, is it weird that a small part of me wishes they would have just made this like a single player experience? Like just that's okay. I'll go with that. That's how good this looked for it being a beta.
Yeah,
That if they told me this was going to be a single player experience, I would believe it. Like, hey, here's an open world Dune game.
mm-hmm.
Go have fun. Like that's and that makes me happy as somebody who, even though I have friends, I often tend to play games on my own. Like Fame here can tell you. Um, so knowing that this is something, because that was most of the gameplay we saw was solo gameplay
Yeah,
that was presented. Even in term, one thing I was happy about, and I was a little nervous because it felt like it took a while to get to, was seeing the melee combat. Because once again, my first thought was I want to be a sword master. And a
yeah.
question that I did not ask that I wish I would have was, as you progress in your abilities, will you have different attack patterns and attack skills? So
Mm.
is it going to be the same combos over and over, but it just gets stronger? Or are you gonna, a la Skyrim style, as you advance, you get a couple of different melee attacks, get a couple of different power swings, different abilities. So that was something I didn't get to ask, but with the skill tree, I'm gonna go ahead and think positive and assume yes. There was no
Mm-hmm.
clarity because, of course, I didn't ask,
Yeah,
but the combat looked good, and
it
it
really
it
did.
reminded me of the shooting. When you start shooting, it kind of does a little slow pan in, and you're doing third person over the shoulder at a distance. You can still see the character, you can still see your body, and they were shooting and letting off and having a good time. And then they showed the melee with the sword battles. And for it being an early build, it definitely looked dope. I was ready to throw money in and go into
He was
early
ready to
access
pay
right
for it
there.
right now. He was ready
Yeah,
to pay for it. I do
and
think.
be
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh no, and because if it's half of what we saw, it's gonna be fun. But
It's
if
going
it's
to be really
everything
fun.
that we saw, man, and
Amazing.
this is I like survival. I like survival MMOs. Like I said, I play them. This had a solid feel,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks like it's gonna take up a lot of time. And I was pleasantly surprised. And the things, yeah. So let's keep going. I'm over here
So I
wrapping
do
up.
want
My
to
bad.
before we wrap this
Yeah.
video up, it's a couple of quick hitter things, notes that I do want to talk about with details that people might want to know. So this Dune Awakening is built on Unreal Engine 5.2.
Hmm.
PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S crossplay is currently being worked on, but not guaranteed to be available at launch.
And then
Um,
also let's stop right there for a sec. And this is going to release at the same time on all those consoles. It's
yes,
not going to be, that was something that was said, and I wanted to make sure.
yes,
But
definitely.
yeah, they're aiming for crossplay, but it's not guaranteed.
Yes, it's not guaranteed. Character, just like most MMOs, survival games, your characters cannot move in between servers. So if you start on another server and want to play with your friends on a different server, you have to create a new character. This isn't something new. Um, One thing you can do is if an NPC has a vehicle that you like, you can take and steal that vehicle.
Let's stop there for a sec. Gear, weapons, that was something that was super cool, that you're going to have the ability to use other people's weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So if you kill an NPC that had something cool on them, you can use it.
Yeah,
Like you're going to be able to pick it up and use it. So that come
that's cool.
on. But yeah, keep going.
All right. Let's see what else we have here.
The
The
sandwalk.
Sandwalk. the iconic Dune sandwalk is not in the game. They're not saying that it won't be in the game at some point, but it might be too much of a task because of how unique that is and how kind of awkward in a
Goofy
way that would
looking.
look.
It's
Yeah,
wonky. Yeah.
it's very wonky. So that's not in the game. Um, Currently, players are not allowed to respect their characters. That's not something that is
Yeah.
and that's not something that's in the game. Not saying that it won't be, but you're currently not able to respect your characters. Let's see, events in the world for spices, and all the players and servers can see that. We talked about that. The spices and those events will be first come, first serve. Be prepared to fight it out. And then we talked about as well. There are death penalties, like we said before. But if you die from the sandworm, you lose everything, including your spices. It's a wrap. Again, this game was shown. It was in beta form. Unfortunately, we cannot show you the video that we saw.
Yes.
So you got to take our word for it. You have to take our word for
Trust
it for what
us.
we saw. We can't show it. But I think overall, I think you're going to be pleasantly, as a gamer, you're going to be pleasantly surprised with Dune Awakening.
And you know what, folks? I think you should really pin on the fact that Fame is fairly new to the genre. I believe like this is there's you haven't played that many survival MMOs.
Literally
So
two.
for this,
Because
yeah,
I've avoided the genre for so long. It's enshrouded in Pal World.
yeah, and I think this is gonna have a good showing, and especially riding off the success of the movies, I think that's gonna give this a big push. So it looks great. It's rocking the hell out of that Unreal Engine. It's definitely pushing it to the max, and
Yeah.
this was in the early
Early.
beta, and it looked good. So I can only imagine once everything starts filling out, and there's more assets and more time with it. And that was another thing too. There was no dates, no dates at all, no windows mentioned, and that doesn't bother me. And they it was also told to us that for if you want a chance at playtest to join, what was it, the Discord, and sign
Yeah.
up on the website and all that other fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I want to, because I don't want to. I think I
You don't
want
want to
to
spoil it.
get on a. I don't want to spoil it for myself, and I'm notorious for getting into early access survival games where your character's constantly being wiped, or you spend 80 hours in this build and then all of a sudden it's wiped, and I'm because my backlog is saying don't. But I'm looking forward to this one. I'm truly looking forward to Dune Awakening.
Awesome. So we do want to thank you guys for checking out the video. If you enjoyed the content and the new Dune Awakening details, you enjoyed the commentary, please hit the like button and subscribe. If you want to support Level 1 Gaming, consider becoming a channel member. We do have videos and things like that that are exclusive for our channel members. If you want to read more into detail about these new details, please go over to lv1gaming.com. The article is there for you guys to read up on. For Baron J67, I am Fame Entertainment, also known as David Whitaker from lv1gaming.com. You guys have an amazing day, and go check out Dune Awakening. Peace.
Yep. Peace.